event is part of Tiqets Save the Date, an online series of events to help you rescue romance this Valentine's weekend. So before we join our hosts for this experience, we're going to take care of a few logistics. If you have any questions for our presenter, you can submit them through the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We're going to have a Q&A at the end of the tour, so please feel free to send through your questions and we're going to try and answer as many of them as possible. If you don't have any questions, you can also vote up your favorite questions by giving them a thumbs up, and we'll aim to ask the questions with the most votes first. So as a lot of you will have realized, this is a Zoom webinar, so your camera will not be on, but you can use the chat, as some of you are already doing, to communicate with your fellow attendees and with the presenters. So you can share where you're joining us from, as well as your reactions during the session, by using the chat to message all panelists and attendees, not just all panelists. If you have any technical difficulties, you can use the chat to send a message to all panelists, and then we'll try and help you out as soon as possible. And if you have any trouble with audio, you can usually just leave and then rejoin again, and that usually fixes things for you. Finally, this experience is going to be recorded, and you'll be able to watch all Save the Date experiences on Tiqets' Facebook page for the whole of this Valentine's weekend. And we're also going to be sending the recordings of the experiences to all of you as registrants in the coming week. So without any further ado, I'm really happy to hand over to our presenter for this experience. Frankie is going to transport us to the world of the penguins at the Aquarium of the Pacific. Take it away, Frankie.
Good morning, everybody. I have Frankie here at the Aquarium of the Pacific, and we love seeing everybody from all over the world. That's amazing. We have people in Paris, Rome. Hello, everybody. Hi, Frankie.
Hi, everyone.
Where are we?
We are in Long Beach, California, in our June Keys penguin habitat, feeding our Magellanic penguins. So we're going to be starting off our very first feed of the day, where I will be offering some herring, which is larger, and some capelin, which is smaller, and whatever's favorite. Yes, that's her name. And so at the beginning of the feed, I may not have a bunch of time to speak while the penguins get their first food, but we are writing down every single fish that all of our birds eat individually. So while I get started on this feed, I want to let you know who's in front of you. I have Ledwig, Whatever, Paddles, Gats, Admiral, and Floyd. So more will come up. We do have 22 Magellanic penguins here in our June Keys penguin habitat. Again, and we're in Long Beach, California at the Aquarium of the Pacific.
Awesome. Good morning, everybody. My name is Madeline. I'm on the social media team here at the Aquarium of the Pacific, and I will be filling in with my favorite fun facts while we are live, and Frankie is in the middle of her feed. Like Frankie said, we have 22 Magellanic penguins here in Long Beach, California at the Aquarium of the Pacific. And just so you know a little bit about us, we are a nonprofit aquarium with a focus on conservation and education. And we are currently open outdoors, so you may see some guests in the background also enjoying our outdoor exhibits where our penguins are located. And we are going to learn more about the mating and love stories of our penguins here on Penguin Beach in our June Keys penguin habitat. Hello, everybody all over the world. It's amazing seeing you all join us here with Tiqets. We're having so much fun so far, and we are so excited to teach you more. Like Frankie said, we are feeding our penguins two types of fish. They are getting capelin and herring. Capelin is the smaller fish, and herring is the larger fish. And all of the animals here at the Aquarium of the Pacific enjoy a sustainable seafood diet, and it is all restaurant quality seafood, so they are eating good. Frankie, who's a really big eater?
Who's a big eater? We have Mr. Gats, and Gats is standing right here.
Look at his
Gats
handsome
loves his
tuxedo.
herring, but he'll also eat that capelin as well. But then again, I also have a bunch of good eaters here, like Anderson, who's taking the capelin. It's 2, 3, 4. Anderson herring. I am counting if you're just joining us, because we do write down every single fish that we eat, and I have my assistant to my right marking those down. And I'll show you what that sheet looks like here in a little bit.
Yeah, and you can see they're swallowing their fish whole, and that is because they have tooth-like barbs in their mouth and down their throat, right, Frankie?
Yes. So they actually have little spines. Let's see if I can show you one.
It's a little scary, but it is really, really cool to see.
I'll show you on Skipper here. So they have these nice spines that will help them really massage all of that fish right down their throat. He says, all done.
Yep. Goes back to fish, please. All right. Good morning, everybody. We love seeing you all here on our Tiqets live stream. We're having so much fun so far. And once Frankie gets to a good spot, we're going to talk a little bit more about the love stories here on Penguin Beach because we have plenty of them.
So for starters, I think I'm going to talk to you about Whatever and Shim. So this here is Whatever. She's walking away, but she'll come back. He's a little one all the way over
There
there.
she goes. There she goes right here.
There
She's
she
walking
goes.
away. That's
Shim,
our small lady.
Shim and Whatever came to us from another facility. Floyd, Aaron. They came to us from another facility back when we opened in 2011. Leo, Green Herring. And they have stayed a pair ever since then. So they've been here at the Aquarium of the Pacific for 10 years. And Whatever, who's right in front of me, is known to only eat capelin. And that's okay. She chooses that little lifestyle. And she's also our oldest penguin. So Shim and Whatever are mated for life, as all Magellanic penguins are. Not all penguin species do mate for life, but Magellanics do. So that basically means that each and every breeding season, they will come find each other at the nest. So usually for Magellanic penguins, the male will come out of the water after their long 4-month-long migration season, and the male will start to build the nest. So here at the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach, California, we are preparing nests with sanitized palms or grasses that we will lay out for them, and they will actually bring into their little burrows. So behind us, we have 9 burrows or nest boxes.
That's a
And right now they're closed off because we're not quite in breeding season. Once we are in breeding season, they'll start to enter. But basically, they'll collect for several weeks, making a very nice burrow, very fit for one of their eggs.
Very cool. Good morning, everybody. I just want to say thank you again for joining us here with Tiqets. We're having so much fun. We are the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach, California, and we are currently hanging out on Penguin Beach. And I hope you all are having a very, very fun Valentine's Day weekend so far. And we're so excited to tell you more about the love stories here on Penguin Beach. I have aviculturist Frankie here with me. She is the one with all of the penguin knowledge. Hi, Frankie.
Hi.
And my name is Madeline. I'm on the social media team here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. And we also have our volunteers hanging out with us today. And so, like Frankie said earlier, we have 22 Magellanic penguins here on Penguin Beach, and they are eating their sustainable seafood restaurant quality diet. And I saw a couple people in comments say that they're watching with their significant other. That's so amazing. I saw someone saying that their significant other is in another country right now, but they're still watching this together. So we are just so honored to be your little date, evening, daytime. As you can see, it's a beautiful day here in Long Beach, California. We had some rain here. It's about 10 a.m. But it cleared up just in time for this live stream. So we are so excited to bring it to you here on Penguin Beach. All right, Frankie, so we talked a little bit about mating season. What season are they in right now?
Right now, they're in migration season. So that is a season where they actually spend 3 to 4 months in the water all the time. So in their natural habitat off the coast of Chile and Argentina, they're in the water, and as needed, they will come up onto the beaches along the coastline and rest, but mainly they'll get right back into the water, and they'll utilize the coastlines to flee from predators like sharks or sea lions or orcas. But they're not on land a whole lot. So when we're in this season here at the Aquarium of the Pacific, we are also trying to motivate them or encourage them in the water. So we don't really come and play with them a lot during this season because their natural instincts are to be in the water, and we try to allow for them to do that as much as possible.
So coming up after migration season, though, is nesting season.
Yes.
And so like Frankie mentioned earlier, we will open up the nest boxes and allow our penguins to collect palm fronds and different substrate to create those nests. And we try and mimic that habitat for them here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. And we have been successful. We have raised penguin chicks here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. Frankie, you want to talk a little bit about that?
I do. So another match made in heaven is Roxy and Floyd. Roxy and Floyd have raised 7 of the 13 chicks we've raised here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. And right now in front of me, I have 3 of those offspring, Dee, Wally, and Cat's all the way. He's about to jump back in the water. And of those young, they actually look pretty similar. They're a nice, fun little family. They don't really know their family, except for Roxy and Floyd know that they are mates.
So we have 3 siblings right in front of us. And can you tell us again, is this Wally right closest to us?
This one is D. And then we actually have Kate. Kate is not one of the offspring. She's a Brazilian rescue, which we can talk about that in a little bit. And then Wally's in front of me. So now we only have 2 siblings, Wally and D. And they're actually 2 of our youngest penguins. They hatched back in 2018 here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. And when we raise penguins, we actually allow the parents to do as much as they possibly can. But when the chicks start to get a little too curious and exits their habitat, maybe start looking around, we'll actually intervene and bring them into a penguin nursery. And this nursery is where we teach the penguins how to eat whole food, like Dee just ate that piglin. She's gonna have another and another.
She's such a good penguin. Look at her. She's so polite. You can see that all of the penguins here at the Aquarium of the Pacific have their own personalities. And you can see if you're with us at the very start of the stream that some penguins like to rush the bucket, maybe even help themselves sometimes. But then we have very, very polite penguins like Miss D, who definitely just hangs back and waits her turn. She's so polite. She's like, excuse me, do you think I could have one?
And Robbie here just came all the way up to the bucket. He is one of our Brazilian rescues. I'm going to keep saying that until I get to the point of our Brazilian rescue talk. But before that, I'm going to finish up the nursery talk. So when they go to the nursery, they learn how to eat. They're actually really fluffy, cute little penguins until they're ready to molt, which means they grow in their new feathers. So when they are not downy anymore and they have these nice coat of feathers, they actually will learn how to waterproof themselves. And ultimately, we'll teach them how to swim. Or anyway, we'll encourage them in the water so that they figure out what they're supposed to do in the water. And we'll just kind of encourage them along the way. We may give them toys, but at about 60 to 80 days, they go from being the size of your palm to the size of D here. And at 80 days, we usually are able to bring them back into the habitat where they meet the whole colony. And the only way you know that they are chicks or juveniles is because they look like juveniles for a whole year. So they have a nice gray backside and a white front side, no stripes, and they're not black until their first annual molt.
Very cool. And you can see Dee has already gone through that molt. She will be 3 years old this year.
Dee is going to be 3 in May. It's very easy to keep track of all of our penguin molt birthdays because they all hatch the same time of the year. So mid to end of May is usually all of their birthdays.
Very cool. Yes, I see someone dropping a link in the chat. So if you'd like to learn more about our penguins, or if you missed something here on this live stream, you can head to our website, aquariumofpacific.org. You can also watch this exhibit 24/7 thanks to our explore.org webcams. That is also at our website, aquariumofpacific.org. But definitely stay tuned because you won't get this view from that webcam. So Frankie is going to get a little closer. And like she mentioned, our penguins are still in migration season. So they are spending a lot of time in the water. And so some penguins usually won't come all the way up on the beach during this time. So Frankie will provide them room service and she'll do a little do a little drive-by service for them.
You're right.
I know.
But actually, that bird over there was Roxy. And Roxy is the 3rd of 3 Brazilian rescues that we have here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. So I mentioned Kate and Robbie earlier, but about 10 years ago, we were able to rescue and rehabilitate several Magellanic penguins that were stranded off the coast of Chile and Argentina. And Roxy, who's all the way at the water's edge, I went up to her because she still has a case that we're managing annually of bumblefoot. If you've never heard of bumblefoot, it is very similar to a bed sore, where if they're on the wrong sort of substrate and they're standing for too long, they just develop sores that get an infection and it could grow all the way up their leg. So we try really hard in these seasons where Roxy's not supposed to be out of the water too much to help her out, and we bring the food to her. Thankfully, Kate and Robbie are doing really well, so they both came up to the bucket. They don't have an open case and they're not being managed just as closely as Roxy is. So that's why I went all the way to Roxy. But yes, I do give room service every once in a while.
Very cool. I think we have some new people joining us, so I want to say good morning to you all from Long Beach, California. We are the Aquarium of the Pacific, and we are in Southern California. Like I said, it is a beautiful day here. It's about 10 a.m. And we are a nonprofit aquarium with a focus on conservation and education. And I will let Frankie tell the story of conservation of a few of our Magellanic penguins from this habitat.
Yes, thank you. So I kind of touched about it a second ago. The overarching program that we're a part of is a species survival plan. And that species survival plan does not have a whole lot to do with penguins in the wild. It has a lot to do with penguins within animal care settings in the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. But what that does, it's essentially a big matchmaking program, which is nice and works well with the theme of this meeting. What that does is it helps us provide the proper care for these animals, including ensuring the longevity of their lives. So I'm just going to finish up feeding Jade right here. I don't know if my assistant knows I've given her over 10 capelin. We do write down every fish. Oh, Jade, she didn't want that last one.
That one.
That's okay. So this species survival plan is what helps us manage not just our colony, but all of the colonies within the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. And that goes anywhere from them helping us determine if we are going to be breeding this season and who we should be breeding. So for example, I have a couple of birds that are siblings and they are mated up. Thank you. So we don't actually allow those birds to breed. So with birds, we allow them to breed. We don't allow them to raise the egg that they lay. With birds, it's really easy to manage that scenario because birds, the eggs will develop after a few days. So they will lay an egg, and between the first 3 and 5 days, we won't see any development. So we'll actually swap the egg with a dummy egg. And we do this for more than one reason, not because genetics can be very close, but also because we want to make sure that we don't have too many penguins, because if we can't care for all of them, although it would be really cute to have 100 million penguins on the habitat, we just can't actually care for that many. So making sure that we're managing the population and swapping out eggs at a very early timeline before there's any development is crucial to maintain the species survival plan. So not only are we making sure in-house that we are following that plan, but all of the facilities are assisting. And then when we have birds that are rescued from the wild, that only aids the species survival plan. That adds in new genetics where all of those birds are called founder birds because they have founding genetics that are just supplying new and variety to all of the colonies. So we have 3, we actually started with 6, and sadly their complications over time did not allow them to survive much longer, but we have 3 amazing birds that are doing wonderfully. Our colony is fairly young. We only opened in 2011. If you're just joining us, we are in Long Beach, California at the Aquarium of the Pacific. And so we've had those birds for over 10 years now. And in their natural habitat, 10 years is very old. But in an animal care setting where we have access to food and water and a veterinarian and no predators, most importantly, no predators, these birds can live 25 to 35 years.
Who do we have with us hanging out right now?
I'm gonna let you take a guess.
Is this Dee
This
again?
is Dee.
Aw,
Dee's
Miss
just
Dee.
hanging out with us.
She's so polite. She likes to just hang out. And as you can see, all of our penguins have their own distinct personalities. We have 22 Magellanic penguins here on Penguin Beach in our June Keys habitat. And like I said, you can watch this exhibit 24/7 thanks to our explore.org webcams. But don't head there yet because we still have some fun stuff to get to. Frankie is doing a good job of showing us her feathers. I don't know if she wants to get any closer to us to show them off all the way.
Dee's peculiar. She likes to be near you, but you can't touch her.
She's particular about it.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
I understand our boundaries.
So Frankie, when it comes time for mating season, is there any courtship? Is there any interesting behaviors that we see from our penguins around that time of year?
A lot of times it comes down to they size each other up. So they do a fun long neck where they are kind of, the male is becoming a little bit bigger and pushing away the other boys, and the female does in turn pick her mate. And then once they get their burrow, they protect it together. So they can be very territorial. And the male spends a lot of time, especially in the natural, this is Fisher walking up, in their natural habitat. The male is spending a lot of time finding their perfect spot. They actually will return to the same spot relatively every single season. Hi, Fisher. Nope.
No, just kidding.
Oh,
now no
Bye,
kidding.
Fisher.
So we do have some bachelors and bachelorettes.
We
currently.
do.
Any potential couples you see as we head into mating season this year?
Actually, these 2 would be a great match.
Do
Fisher.
you guys hear that? Do you guys hear that? You too?
Great match. They don't quite know it yet. Dee's actually very interested in her brother, but we can't fully control the scenario. Oh, but Dee here, D is the offspring of Roxy and Floyd. And Roxy's one of those Brazilian rescues. And Fisher is the offspring of Kate and Avery. I haven't said Avery's name much. He did pass away a few months ago. But Kate and Avery are both Brazilian rescues. So if you go back to that genetics talk, these both have very desirable genetics and they're not overly represented. This is Skipper. Skipper's also a Roxy Floyd chick. These two are siblings, Skipper and D.
And you can kind of see some of the same characteristics, right? When the two are siblings, do they kind of look similar? I mean, you can see their difference in size is obvious, but I know, they're freckles, they have belly freckles, their little tail spots, as you can see.
So the Roxy Floyd chicks all have a fun white spot on their tail where Fisher does not. Oh, of course he's turning while we say that.
Self-conscious about it.
So that's one of the fun
I
things.
had a white spot on my tail.
And we've also noticed that Roxy Floyd chicks have freckles on their face, where Kate Avery chicks have freckles on their belly. Will you turn around, please, to show the people?
We're shy now. Oh, you got a
those
fish, that
freckles.
changes everything. You can see their belly freckles here, and that aids us to tell our penguins apart from each other. But they also have these little bracelets on their wing.
Yes.
Well, I call them bracelets. But Frankie, can you tell us a little more about that? The little fun bracelet.
Of course. First and foremost, it is an identification band. So each bird has their own set of colors. But to go deeper into that, the male is on the right side. So Flipper Fisher's band is on his right flipper, which makes him a boy. And the females will be on the left side. And each one of those colors is attached to a number, and those numbers head up to that species survival plan. But if you were to visit the Aquarium of the Pacific, which you can right now, or watch online at explore.org, you can see those bands and you can figure out who you're looking at and who you're meeting. And that's really fun and interactive. So when you're out front, you can figure out, match up the penguin to the bead colors. And that's usually how people fall in love with their favorite penguin, whoever they figured out first.
And all of our penguins do have their own names. And like I said, distinct personalities too. Some of my favorite names that we have here on Penguin Beach are Admiral Fancy Pants.
Yes.
And then we also have Whatever the Penguin too. Do you want to tell Whatever's naming story?
I do. Although I wasn't there for Whatever's story. She came to us from another facility. To what I know, they had so many chicks that year that the main keeper just said, oh, just name her Whatever, because she had been exhausted by figuring out fun names for all the birds. And then alternatively, her mate Shim, they accidentally misgendered him. So instead of a he or a her, a she, he was a him. So they just named him Shim. So Shim and Whatever both have very entertaining stories. And they came to us, so we get to share that story and keep that going.
Shim and Whatever are an interesting couple because Shim is our largest bird here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. He's very tall, and I wish he was on the beach right now so you could see. But his mate, Whatever, is the smallest bird we have here at the Aquarium of the, or the smallest penguin, sorry, we have here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. She is much smaller than him, so they make a very, very cute couple, I think.
They do. And if you do check out our explore.org camera, the camera operators love to zoom in on them because they have a special spot on the beach they go to every day. I don't think we'll be seeing Shim out of the water today. He actually just had his annual physical the other day, and he's a little mad at me. So he's taking some time away from me, and that's okay. I accept. He'll be back in a couple of days.
He will. So they do get annual physicals here. Can you talk a little bit about our husbandry care and animal care here at the Aquarium of the Pacific?
So first and foremost, since I'm here every day, I do understand what is normal with each and every individual penguin so that I can quickly find abnormal things. So although they have those bead bands, I do learn everything about them so that I don't even really need to look at those bands to see them. But every single day they get a vitamin to supplement their, looks like this, it fell out of a fish earlier. It supplements all the nutrients we may have washed off. We'll just stick them in a fish. And so they may have been washed off in the thawing process. And every other day they get an anti-malarial medicine. We are outside in a warm climate where mosquitoes don't necessarily die at the cold parts of the year. So we have a preventative medicine to make sure that they don't catch malaria because the mosquitoes just don't go away. And that's avian malaria. So annually on top of that, we just do our body checks. You're welcome to get a little closer if you'd like to. You don't have to. Oh, I'll go with you because I have to talk louder.
I was going to say, as long as you don't mind talking louder, let's get a little closer. Let's hang out at the water's edge.
So every single year they do things like a body check. If you can imagine what happens for you when you go to a physical to see your doctor. Every single year they are checking their eyes, mouth, all of their feet, their flippers. They're making sure that they are the perfect size. So you can actually tell just by looking at a penguin. Oh, they all went for a swim. Be right back. You can tell by looking at a penguin if they're too skinny or too large. So they're checking for all those things, and then they get x-rays. They'll do blood draws to check their blood to make sure their levels are normal. And every once in a while, we have to anesthetize to look at something further. But that happens once a year. So for some animals like Shim, we really don't have to catch him up very often. Oh, here's Shim right here. Hey, Shim.
There's our big guy.
Hi,
And
Shim.
Frankie, you mentioned something, we are in a warm weather climate. We're here in Long Beach, California. In Southern California, it's pretty much always beautiful here. And I think people are surprised to learn that we have penguins outdoors. People usually expect penguins to live in a cold weather climate. Can you kind of educate us a little bit more about how we can have penguins here in Southern California?
Yes. So these penguins, Magellanic penguins, do not require snow or ice to survive. So with that being said, they're found off the coast of Chile and Argentina, and there's actually 11 or 12 species of penguins that do not need that snow or ice. And Chile and Argentina have a very similar climate to what we have here in Southern California. So it's excellent for us to have an outdoor habitat. These penguins do not have to go inside every night. And so we're able to provide that for them. Now, if we did have to have snow or ice, we would turn this habitat into an indoor space where we would control the air temperature, the water temperature, make sure they had things like ice and snow on a daily basis. But these birds just don't need that. They are found along the lines with other penguins that are pretty similar to them, like Galapagos penguins or the Humboldt penguins, which look very similar. And all of those penguins live pretty close to the Americas and not Antarctica, which is where those really cold and more famous penguins like the emperor penguins live and our Adelie penguins. The Magellanic penguins just don't need snow or ice, which is nice because I don't particularly like being cold.
I don't know. I don't think we're made for that. We live here in Southern California for a reason. But we have people joining us from all over the world. I see people in the UK. I see people everywhere chiming in. We're so happy that you are joining our nonprofit aquarium here in Long Beach, California. And hope when the world is a little more calm, you'll come to visit us. And our 22 Magellanic penguins here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. Like I said, they all have their distinct personalities. Frankie, do you have any very rambunctious penguins?
Yes, Lily comes to mind. Lily, sweet Lily. She's the first to the bucket every day. I don't always let her win, but if she had it her way, she'd eat until she was full and not let any other penguin eat food. She's for some reason, whatever. She's the oldest lady here, and she gets to do what she wants, and I let her. Whatever's in charge.
Whatever is in charge, but you're really in charge, Frankie.
Well, I help.
Very cool. All right. Let's see. We talked a lot about nesting season. And how many chicks have you helped raise here at the Aquarium of the Pacific?
I have only helped raise a few penguins. I haven't been here very long, only working with our penguins since 2018, which was actually the last year we had chicks here. So with that being said, I've only helped with 3 officially. And then before that, I kind of was around for 2 chicks. But Cleo, Wally, and Dee were my first chicks that I ever was able to really help raise. And they're going to be 3 this year.
Aww. And we met them just a few minutes ago. If you're just joining us, we're here live at the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach, California. We are on our June Keys penguin habitat, which we nicknamed Penguin Beach as well. And you can actually watch this exhibit 24/7 thanks to our explore.org webcams. You can head to our website, aquariumofpacific.org, and you can search webcams. And you can also visit our nonprofit aquarium right now. Our outdoor exhibits are open. You can actually see our penguins in person. I got a note that says, I think we might be ready for our Q&A questions.
Ooh.
Let's see.
Yes, that sounds
There we
great.
are.
So
Hello,
we've gathered
hello.
up a ton of questions, Madeline and Frankie. Everyone is very keen to find out about your very cute little friends. So I'm going to leap right into it. One of the main questions, and the one that's been voted up the most, is it true that penguins stay with the same partner for the whole of their lives?
Yes, not all penguin species, but Magellanic penguins will mate for life. And if they do lose a mate along the way, they will find a new one and they'll stay with them. So what they do over time is create a small call called a contact call, which sounds something like, oh. And so they have their own little phones and they'll find each other, and it's very adorable. And I think that's the number one way that a penguin knows that it's their mate.
Ah, that's adorable. I think we spoke a little bit about this earlier, but someone's asked how you know which penguin you're interacting with. You mentioned that there are some colored bands that give you a bit of a clue, but you also said that you can see without a band necessarily. So what cues, how do you know who you're feeding?
Yeah, it is all about personality at the bucket for me. So there's about 4 or 5 that storm the bucket as soon as the feed starts. You may have seen a bunch of them. The ones that come right to the bucket are confident, and then so it's kind of in phases you learn them. And then there are penguins on the other side of the spectrum that come to the bucket at the very end, like Jade and Matson. They came up at the end, and they are more calm birds. They'll take food when they're ready for it. And then in between, I have some nervous birds. So the way that they stand and they just are ready to go back to the water, especially during this very nervous migration season where their minds are ready to flee if there's a predator. So they're ready and twitchy. So I kind of learned those birds the way how their personalities are. Some I rely solely on patches on their face, and some walk a little differently. It is very interesting and probably complicated, but there are only 22 birds, and I'm thankful for that because it took me a little while to really get to know.
Only 22. She's an expert.
To be
Amazing.
fair, I do also know all of the 100 lorikeets by sight, and I don't really know how that happened. Those are tiny parrots that all look the same.
It's definitely a talent. How long have you been working with these penguins exactly?
I have been working with these penguins since 2018. I only came to the aquarium in 2016, where I worked with our amphibians and other terrestrial birds, so lorikeets, large parrots, and some ambassador animals. And I slowly worked my way into aquatic birds, where right now I work with our penguins, our shore birds, and our diving birds. So I also oversee our puffins and other Alaskan birds as well.
Okay. Oh, wow. And then someone's asked if the aquarium is open for visitors. I could see some people standing near the enclosure, and they also want to know if it's possible to interact with the penguins.
Yes, so we are open. You can see our outdoor exhibits are open from 9 to 6 every day and until 8 p.m. I believe on Saturday and Sunday. And you can book your reservations in advance on our website, aquariumofpacific.org. And we do have safety protocols in place, of course, and you can interact with our penguins because they can see you through that exhibit just as well as you can see them. So you can even see some people interacting with them now. And they like to swim back and forth. They definitely have their own personalities that are viewable from outside the exhibit. So you can definitely visit them anytime.
And then on top of that, we also have animal encounters. So if you are interested in meeting a penguin in person, you can come to the aquarium. You can book online and come meet an individual penguin up close and personal. And so that will happen before we open. Again, there's some safety precautions involved with that. That is offered 7 days a week. So if you wanted to come and meet a penguin, you can do that as well.
It's really great. I don't get tired of it. I've been able to come, lucky enough that part of my job involves me coming onto Penguin Beach and hanging out with our penguins. So I definitely recommend booking your animal encounter.
Oh, I don't think I would get tired of it either. Watching you feed the penguins, you might have already mentioned this, but how many fish do the penguins eat on average per day? Does it differ per penguin, or do they all have a sort of rough average that they eat?
It's both. It's a very complicated answer, so I'm going to try and be short with it. They all eat different amounts for their own body size. So they're offered herring or capelin. My herring is all out, but I do have some capelin left. It's a lot smaller. So depending on if they're eating herring or capelin or both, it's mixed. So just for this feed here, we've got some tallies, and Jade ate a bunch of capelin, and then we still have another feed this afternoon. So we'll basically double this. But in their season for molting, they actually bulk up and might eat triple or quadruple this in any given day. Oh, wow. So that season isn't for another 6 months. But they do that for a very important reason, because when they're molting or replacing their feathers, they're not waterproof. So they have to bulk up, get really big so that they're on land until they're waterproof. Because if they're not waterproof, they can't swim. If they can't swim, they can't hunt or eat. So in that time of year, they're eating a lot more fish.
Wow. So you said, I mean, just seeing all of those little marks, how many are there? Like, it looks like 10s, 20s numbers of
On
fish?
your
Oh,
lots.
there are 6 kilograms of herring and 4 kilograms of capelin. That doesn't do much for you. It's about, I never had to think about what the number was.
And how do they know when they're full and they'll just stop eating, or are they inclined to just keep coming back for more and more?
You said for molt when they're bulking up?
When they're eating, do they know when they've had too much to eat, or do you need to turn them away from the bucket?
They do know, they self-regulate, and they will know when they're done eating. Some of them are a little more social, so they'll eat slower over the entire period of time. Like Dee, it may have seemed like she was eating a lot more fish than other birds, but she was next to me the whole time, not eating while the other birds were eating.
Okay. And then you mentioned that they have a call that they have between each other to communicate with their partners, but do they speak and make other noises? Do they communicate with each other in other ways?
They do. So they also make another very main noise, which is a bray, like a donkey bray. And they sound identical to donkeys. So if you can imagine that long call, the penguins will use their entire body to make this very long and deep call, which I cannot recreate, or else I would. But it's so similar that I have found myself at small zoos or petting zoos where I hear a donkey and my brain's like, oh, there's penguins, let's go. And there are no penguins on site.
An interesting question from Mariana. Is it true that penguins enjoy watching movies or cartoons and cartoons?
Oh. I know they've played on an iPad
Yes,
before.
we do have an iPad where they play a game with, it's basically a game made for cats where they're chasing a mouse around, but they're so curious that they see the light and they just follow it, very similar to cats. I would say the answer is yes. I've never seen it intentionally, but we bring them to our fish. We bring them out on adventures and they see fish tanks and they follow everything they see in there. So I can't imagine that a TV screen would be very different. I've never given them a video to watch. Maybe I will.
And then, I mean, you've talked about them being quite social and that sort of thing as well. How would they let you touch them or pick them up, or does it depend on the penguin again?
Yeah, it does depend on the penguin, but a lot of our younger birds who are not paired up are much easier and more interested in being interacted with. So for those penguins, those are the ones that are more likely to go to those encounters we mentioned, and they are more likely to hang out near us. This season right now, it's not a very good representation of birds hanging out around you. Other seasons coming up, breeding season, they're going to be all around us and they'll sit out here for the whole time. But when we pick them up, it's fairly easy. They aren't very stressed out. They will just kind of allow us to move them wherever we're moving them. And they're pretty soft. And I don't think I'll ever get tired of holding a penguin.
I can imagine. How long do they live for? What is their lifespan?
Yeah, so in an animal care facility with no predators, access to food and water, and a veterinarian, they actually will live 25 to 35 years. We have a very young colony. Most of our birds are under the age of 7. So we've got a long time. This is Mr. Gatz. He's on the exhibit right now. He's one of our younger birds. Hi.
He's like, oh, you talking about me? You rang? Very cool. Do you have any more questions?
Yeah, we've got tons. One question that just occurred to me as well is how do you know when they get older? Is there a way to tell if they're older penguins? Do they go gray or?
They don't change in color. Hi. They don't change in color. What they will do is, it's mostly once they are nearing the end of their life, you'll see differences. So they're actually pretty similar until those end of life complications. Hi, thank you.
He likes your mask.
So they don't change in color. They may stop laying eggs for the females, or you may see very similar to humans, just slowing down a little bit, but there's nothing visually that would tell us. It's more behavioral.
Okay. And how often do they breed? How long do their eggs take to hatch as well?
What a great question. I'm sorry I didn't answer that. So they will lay an egg and it'll incubate for about 48 days. I'm sorry, 38 to 42. 48 is puffins.
Oh, okay.
38 to 42 days. And both the male and the female will sit on the egg. usually what happens is the male or one will be on the egg while the other is hunting for fish. So they flip-flop, they both take part in incubating and raising their young. And once, I think it's around 8 or 9 weeks that the chick becomes curious and big. And in their natural habitat off the coast of Chile and Argentina, the adults will start to leave for longer periods of time once the chick gets older and more curious. But we actually will take them behind the scenes, and that's when they're learning to eat from us and learning to swim and take care of their feathers. So between that 9-week and 80 days old, that's when they are really learning to be a penguin, and then we bring them back to the colony. So they learn how to eat from their parents, and they learn those innate responses so that when they're old enough, they will have experienced being fed so they can feed their offspring.
Okay. And then just after seeing you pick one of the penguins up, I wondered how much do they weigh?
Well, that particular penguin is our heaviest penguin. That's Max. He's a big boy. And he weighs close to 12 pounds. Our smallest penguin weighs close to 7.5 or 8 pounds. But 12 is that's top of the range for a healthy penguin. If he was much bigger, I would be concerned, but he's not. And that's, I think, the weight that Gats is supposed to be. Oh, and here's his lady/sister D coming out of the water.
And do you know what that measurement is in kilograms? Because I know we have people all over the world.
Oh, I do. Oh my gosh.
I know we get to actually
I only use kilograms. So that's about 6.0 kilograms. So D here, she weighs about 5.3 kilograms. I have this on my mind because they just had their physicals.
And then we saw one of the penguins just sort of lift up his wings and flap a little bit. And one of our participants wants to know why they do that. Why do they lift up their flippers, I suppose, and flap them?
A little bit of it is a stretch, just to kind of like maybe to help reposition a couple of feathers. But it's really just a stretch. They do not fly.
Are we gonna have one in person?
Here's D.
Said, oh, do you mean this?
So they spend a lot of time maintaining their feathers and maybe also to wring off a little bit of the water if there's any excess water. I think that's my answer. I don't know specifically or scientifically why they're doing it, but I think it's a stretch.
And then I'm just going to try and sneak in 2 more questions. One question from Christine asking how they select their mate.
How do they select their mate? I think they just look really good to each other. The males will get very curious and they do this thing where they'll kind of get a little swollen in the top of their head naturally so they can look just slightly bigger. And the males will use their whole body to kind of stand over who they're interested in. And then the female ends up deciding, oh, that's what I want. I'll be with you. Yes, thank you. But I haven't seen that very much because since I've been on the team, all of these penguins, the ones that are paired up, have been paired up for a long time. So these next couple of weeks, I think we'll see some new pairings. So I'll get to really experience that firsthand this year.
This is then maybe a good lead-on question from that and a really lovely question to finish our experience off for Valentine's weekend. What can we learn from penguins to aid our own love lives and relationships is what Ruby would like to know.
What a sweet question.
Well, they're very patient, they're loving, they stick together for a long time. They help protect each other.
Wear a tuxedo often.
They look good all the time.
So definitely get your tuxedos out.
Well, this has been Madeline and Frankie. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of the penguins who've been the stars of our show today. It's been a real treat.
It's been so fun.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it. So there'll be a couple of other Save the Date experiences over the course of the rest of the evening. Please do join for those. And this experience will also be available on Facebook Live for the rest of the weekend. So if you cannot wait to see the penguins again, please do go and check them out this weekend. And as Madeline said, you can also go to the Aquarium of the Pacific website, and you'll be able to find a couple of live streams there to keep your love for penguins satiated, I suppose.
And I forgot who we were live with for a second, but you guys actually sell our outdoor tickets and membership. So if someone wants to drop a link on how they can purchase through you guys, that would be amazing.
That would be Great. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a lovely
All right,
day,
everybody.
evening.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye-bye.